Hello, 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 ladies and gents, and welcome to this week's episode of the Bought and Beloved podcast. It's your girl, Kirby Kelly, back at it again, and we're just having guest after guest after guest. It is literally the gift of guesses. Guests. I can't talk. Anyways, I am joined this week with my dear friend, Brandon Pouge. Brandon, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Let everybody know a little bit about who you are, what you do, what you're passionate about, so we have some context.
Sure. Well, my name is Brandon Pouge. My wife and I have a company that we steward called TruLabs. We have hydration products, energy products, sleep products, and pre-workout, and some new products that are about to come out, which we're so really, really excited about. In fact, we're going to Michigan to present some just to a retailer next week. So I leave Monday. But we have this really cool company called TruLabs, and we make really healthy products that taste great. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, we have a podcast also that's called The Lab Podcast, and maybe some really cool things coming in the future that we've been talking about. So
who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, some pretty wild stuff is going on at the lab.
What's cool is that when I first heard about your products, I'm like, okay, this is awesome. I tried them and I was like, this is great. And then I heard more about your heart and your mission and your values, especially as a man of God in a Christian company, or a company with Christian values. Yeah. And it's just everything you do is with excellence and with purpose. And I love your products and we love your family.
Well, a lot of that credit goes to two things. Mm-hmm. Jesus, my Lord and Savior.
Come on.
And my wife, who's my Holy Spirit number 2. Because honestly, without her, I'm a wreck. So, but yeah.
She's awesome.
She's really cool.
We love Jen. Well, when we were talking and kind of brainstorming what we wanted to do for this week's episode, Brandon briefly shared with me just how much he loves his family and that there has been so much reward reaped from the faithfulness of being a family that pursues the Lord amidst everything, no matter what. And so I just want to throw the mic to you and to hear your heart on that. And I'm sure there's so many people listening where it's like, how do I raise a family like that? How do I become a person like this? And I'm sure that they're going to benefit so much from just hearing your story.
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things that in any relationship to really make a marriage work is that one of the two people, hopefully both of them are this, but one of them has to be an extremely kind person. And for me, that's honestly Jen. She is extremely kind. She's very compassionate. She's selfless. And we've reaped the benefits now. We've been married 22 years.
Oh my gosh.
If you can even imagine. Like, I still feel like I'm 25 and we've been married like 4 or 5 years. But we have a kid in college now. Lexi is at Texas A&M.
Yeah.
And so the thing that really has struck me the last few weeks is what it looks like to raise a family that serves the Lord. And this happened 3 weeks ago. My wife and I are driving back from an A&M game. We've got Maverick in the truck with me. Reagan is in the Suburban with my mom and dad in front of us.
Those are his 2 kids.
Yeah,
he has 3 kids.
We got 3 kids, and then my mom and dad are up there, and then we just left Lexi at Texas A&M. And I'm talking to my wife, and we're driving on this little 2-lane blacktop road in the middle of nowhere, Texas, which I just love Texas. And I said something that night with my other 2 kids, and like, we have built this beautiful life together. And you can believe that, but when you say it out loud, like, something came over me and I was like, your mom and I have built a beautiful life together. And I was just like, wow.
Oh.
Like, the fact that I said that is even more so because I believed it. And so what does that mean? What does that look like? Well, when you walk into your kid's room and their door's shut and you walk in and it's like, you look at them and they're reading their Bible and like, oh, hey, Dad, I'm reading my Bible. It's like, what a reward that is. And then when I hear Lexi, she's talking about her friends at college, they're out partying and she's not.
Yeah.
It's like, man, what have we done to be able to have this beautiful life? And, not everything's been easy.
Yeah.
In fact, there's been a lot of hard times. And I think those hard times, where the Bible talks about, builds perseverance, builds character.
Yes.
Right. And those things that have happened have changed our family in such a way where it's like I'm starting to look back, and I'm starting to even look forward. Like, what will this look like in 5 or 10 years? Like when our kids maybe get married or our kids start having kids. I just can't imagine what the fulfillment would be, because I've been so fulfilled in seeing my kids serve the Lord. I get to baptize all 3 of my kids, which I can't even tell you what that's like. Just the most emotional thing, because it's like, you know, you look into their lives when they're kids or when they're teenagers, and it's like, hey, you know, why do you want to be baptized? And like, well, because I believe in Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. And it's like, well, in the name of Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and you bring them out of the water. It's like, did that moment just happen? Right. I hang around you guys all the time, which are, you know, late 20s, early 30s or whatever, bunch of people. And I still feel like that's my soul and that's my age.
Yeah.
So I can't believe now that we've got a 19, an 18, and a 15-year-old kid.
Dang.
But that's what's so cool of building in this beautiful life together, is that you get to look back and so let me just give you an example. My birthday was a month ago, and my mom, you know, she likes to give meaningful gifts. And we were at this A&M game, and she took a picture of us. We were in a friend's friend. That friend has a suite there. It was phenomenal. But we're there with all of our A&M garb on, and we look into the camera and we take this picture. And my mom gave that to me for my birthday. It was just a picture of my family in a frame, and I just bawled. I just lost it, because it was everything.
So sentimental.
It was everything that you would hope for. You know, you get married and it's like, well, how are we going to do this? I remember, you know, we got our kid home from the hospital. I was like,
what now?
Was there an instruction manual for this thing? Right? Like, what do we do? And then here we are. We've gone through, you know, 3 kids. We've got our last 2 in high school, and the reward of saying, God, look, I want my kids to be your kids first.
Yeah.
I want my wife, Jen, is your daughter before she's my wife. And when you look at it as a stewardship issue, just as we do our company, TruLabs, God can do so much with it. And you're so rewarded, because when you hold things like this, when you hold things with an open palm, it's like, God, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
This is yours.
Yeah.
He just blesses it.
I'm curious to know, and we can talk about your kids in a minute, because I do have questions for that, especially with Richard and I being like a young married couple. And it's like, all of our friends are having kids. And we even talked about it. Not that we're like actively trying and want to have a family right now. It's like, we want to travel. We want to do all these things first. Right. But like, we've talked about it, like we're thinking more generationally now. Let's first talk about that unit though of husband and wife. Like, what did you and Jen, I'm sure there were many things where it's like, we took some detours here, we took some wrong turns here, but what did you two establish right? Like, what did you two do that was right for your relationship, so that when it came time for a family, you were able to truly steward it in the way that God had called you to steward it? Like, what did that marriage look like, and protecting and forming that marriage unit look like? And then we can get to the formation of your kids.
Yeah, I think, you know, one of the things that we did right was that we had a really short engagement and a quick marriage.
Us, me and Richard.
Yeah, y'all did too. So my wife and I, we met and were engaged in 3 months, and we were married 3 months after that.
Come on.
So we literally was 6 months from meeting her to getting married. And the reason that we kind of want to do that is because, like, the first month, we never even kissed. Like, it was crazy. Like, we never even kissed. In fact, this is even crazier. Like, we got to hang out so much as friends that one night I was dropping her off after paying for a meal and kind of like acting like it was a date. But I said, hey, look, I don't know that I'm like really attracted to you physically. And she goes, me too. I was like, really? And she was like, yeah. What's crazy, let me bring the story up. 2 days later, we kissed for the first time. And it was like, oh, this is why it's so impactful to fall in love with the person first before you fall in love with them physically.
To have a friendship
like,
first.
Honestly, she's my best friend.
That's what I say about Richard. Like, marriage is friendship on fire. It is like,
that's a great analogy.
I heard somebody say that a while ago. I think it was on TikTok, and I was like, that's the best way to describe it. And like, that's the only way I'm describing it from now on.
That's exactly what it is. And I think the whole adventure, like, look, get married young, buy a house that you can't afford, have kids before you think you can afford them, right? This is an adventure, and you don't have to have it all planned out. You don't have to say, look, well, we're going to do this and we're going to have this much money. Guess what? You never have enough money to have kids. You never have enough money to start a family. I think having that adventure and saying, Lord, I don't know how this is going to work, but I know that you called us to go and procreate and take dominion over the land. Like, I know that you've called us to have kids. Like, that's a godly value that he gives us. So go ahead and do it and just watch God come through, because he will.
So when it came to having kids and raising them, I mean, obviously, like, children are individuals. Like, we're all our own individual people who make our own individual choices. But the way that our parents raise us and the values that they instill in us and how they model and live their lives shape us in our own disciplines. So what did that look like with raising godly kids? Because this is something I think about all the time, where it's like, of course I want to see my kids doing what I did, because I still can't believe that I turned out the way I did, just knowing the trauma that I went through. Yeah. And like my parents didn't model reading scripture and like doing what I do. I'm very much one of the first in my family to like do anything regarding a genuine relationship with Jesus, and brought the faith to my family, like the Christian faith. And I'm just wondering what was that like, instilling that in your kids, and how did you reap that fruit? Because I'm sure that's a big question a lot of parents have, and concerns that they have for future families.
Yeah, I think having the cadence of going to church weekly and having that community that you kind of raise a kid with definitely helps. For us, I think was being able to get away from our phones or our TVs or the busy time, and really spending that quality time one-on-one with our kids, to where they know that you're there for them. They know that you care for them. And I'll give you an example. This was a few weeks ago, maybe last week. Maverick and I went down and went to an A&M game. Everything seems bad about A&M right now. But he's 15, right? And so I let him drive my truck half the way on the highway in a big diesel truck.
Got to get those hours.
He does, right? But it was so fun to just kind of have that time with him, and to just have our little adventure where we spent the night in a hotel together. And it was just him and I, like, got to have that one-on-one time. And the appreciation that I have for him after that is somehow so much greater than it already was. Like, I look at my son now after a week ago in a different way, because now it's like, oh, this is my little man. Like, he's really growing up, and I got to know his heart because we spent 7 hours just looking at a windshield together. And I let him drive my truck on the way back, and he drove it for 3.5 hours all the way through Dallas, through traffic and everything. And I was just like, this guy's awesome. So our relationship the last couple of weeks had just been, it's been really meaningful, because when you're there for your kids and you put the phone down, because honestly, let's just admit it, the phone's really the enemy. Like, it's distracting. So putting your phone down at night, there's a great expression, the days are long, but the years are short. And I think to not bypass those really meaningful moments, because you can have those meaningful moments with your kid at any age. And for us, like, having those deep, meaningful moments has produced good soil, really good soil that now our kids are starting to see the fruit, because it takes years for a fruit tree to actually develop fruit. And we're starting to see that fruit. And I think that's the benefit of really living a life that's been pleasing unto God.
And I think that's really important, is that we make time for those that we love, because it's through relationship that we're able to display Christ, we're able to share Christ, we're able to instill those values. Because I think, at least I'm like on the cusp of millennial and Gen Z. I'm like right there in the middle. And I know with a lot of like the millennial generation, there was hurt in the generation before when it came to faith. And I feel like if there was any display of faith, it was very religious, and it was like, this is just what we're supposed to do. And there wasn't any true fruit in the parents' life, to where faith was so integrated in a relationship between them and the Lord, that when it came to displaying that for their kids, it wasn't displayed as like through relationship and as relationship with God. And I think that that's important with at least the conversations I've had with my friends who are newlyweds or are just now popping out their first kid, maybe their second, that like it's like a whole integrated lifestyle of connection. And like you said, there's so many things fighting for our attention and our affection and distract us to where we're just not authentically connecting. And I feel like over the past year or 2 years or 3 years, like when my mom was alive, because she just recently passed away, those moments where I was able to like sit and actually connect with her and get to know her as like a person and not just as my mom, I was like, wow, like you're actually really cool. And I got to have those talks with her where I was sharing Jesus with her and she came to the faith, and it was amazing. And so I think there's even hope for people who might be listening where it's like, okay, well, my parents weren't that for me. It's like, well, you can be that for your family and start the generational impact that will live on for lineages, but will also affect legacies that already exist.
Yeah. And I think even like for my parents' generation, like a meaningful embrace, like a really warm hug, like they weren't used to that. Right. And so we do that with our kids now. And it like, it's like empowering.
Yeah.
To know that like a meaningful embrace that's just a parent to their child and just to hug them and to just be there with them. And man, we've done that with our kids and it's just powerful. I can't even tell you, I mean, my mom's the sweetest person, most amazing person, but she's not a meaningful embrace. Like we'll just stand there and hold you. She'll give you a quick hug and then she's gone.
Yeah.
Right. And I think just now, and we heard this at the school when we were dropping my daughter off for college. This generation, the Gen Z generation to their parents is like the closest that they've ever seen together. It's like the closest parent to kid bonding that they've ever seen, the ones that have done it, you know.
Wow.
Which I thought that was really interesting. Like they want to be next to their parents. They don't want to leave their parents. They don't want to just go off to college. They want to still have relationship and connectedness.
That's amazing.
I know.
That's how it should be.
That's what I thought too. I mean, maybe we're doing some things right.
Yeah.
You know?
It sounds like, and something that I really admire about you is that, I mean, I've known you for, how long have I known you now? Like a year, a little under a year?
Feels like a lot longer than it probably has been.
It does, honestly. Something that I've just grown to witness in you and admire about you as someone who also lost her father is that you are not only someone who understands and lives out biblical manhood, but you also do it in a way that shows so much kindness and compassion. Because just as Jesus was a man, but in manhood, there's also such a beautiful display of compassion and kindness and selflessness and gentleness. And I see that in you. And I can't even imagine just amazing. How much of a blessing that is to your children, because there's so many young people who don't get to experience that. And so I'm just thankful to see that in you.
That's a big compliment, but this wasn't always this way. Like it's the process of letting the Lord refine you over years and decades.
Yeah.
Right. And constantly knowing that he's got it in control. I think so many dads, and I've been talking about this with your husband and a couple other guys we're in this book study with, but so many dads live in the future because they're trying to do something better. They're trying to go grab something for the family, which causes anxiety. If you have fear of the future, it's anxiety. But then if you have fear of the past, it's regret. So people live between this regret and this past and then this fear of the future, but they don't live in today and they don't experience all their senses and they're not together. They're not present. And I think to be present, to feel the wind go across your face and to smell the smells that you're smelling at this time.
Like, to actually embrace your family.
God gave you 5 senses because he wants you to enjoy the fullness of life.
Yeah.
The fullness of life. And I think so many times if you're looking at your phone or you're living in the future, you almost become numb. And this is something that we've been experiencing, and it's really changed my whole outlook on everything.
That's awesome. And I know Richard always talks so highly after, he doesn't share like what y'all talk about because obviously like that's y'all's group and everything. And I'm not going to pry.
That's good.
With like what y'all might be confessing and crying about. I don't know.
What's your deepest, darkest secret?
Yeah, literally me, my icebreaker.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I can tell that it's been so beneficial for him. Not that it was like this like huge change overnight because he was this terrible. No, he's the most amazing person ever. And I love him. But he just seems more like solidified as a man and as a leader. And I think that's also what's like opened me up and probably him up to having these conversations about like, it's going to be so fun for us to raise children because we get to be who our parents were, but more, like, and more. And we get to love them in the ways that we wanted to be loved as kids and the ways that maybe we needed to be disciplined as kids and to guide them in the ways of Christ. And it's just so exciting to like be married to a person who not only has the potential, but is genuinely that person. And I'm just thankful for you and like seeing these young men and mentoring them in this way because like our generation and the generation below us, like even this podcast, the hope of it is to like speak this truth and teach this truth and implement practical biblical principles so that we can go and be the change, whether we're sharing the gospel in our communities and our families and you're doing that. And
thanks.
I just have a lot of respect for you.
Thanks. I really appreciate that.
Well, to anybody who's listening, is there any last words or encouragements that you want to share, whether it's regarding, maybe there's someone who's listening who has a family or is in a relationship and they listening to your legacy and just the heart that you have for your family, the things that you've done right, the things you've grown in that you would want to encourage or equip anybody with?
Yeah, I had this analogy that came up, and I've never even said this, but you know, what are our kids to us? They're really like our seeds. They're the thing that we leave behind after we're not here anymore, right? So what do you do with the seed? Well, you put them in good soil and you water them, and it takes time for that to happen. It takes time for you to see the fruit of that. But if you'll be patient, and what do you have to do with the seed? You have to give it away. You have to plant it. You can't just keep it in your hand because nothing will happen with it. Right. So if you'll truly believe, hey, look, my kids are not my kids. They're God's kids first. Yeah. And my wife is not my wife. She's God's daughter first. I think when you put everything into perspective and you keep that outlook on life, if you'll try to take every decision that you make through that filter, it makes decisions so much easier. And if you'll do that, God really blesses that.
There's blessing and there's freedom with that. Of like,
I think there's a lot of freedom.
I don't have to be the one to micromanage and be in control because, like, surprise, God's in control either way if you try to be in control or not.
Exactly.
That's so good.
It's a stewardship.
100%. I just feel like stewardship is like the thing that you master well. Clearly, business, family,
takes time.
Life.
It takes time.
It does take
There
time.
are no shortcuts. Nobody wants to hear that, but there are no shortcuts.
Literally. In an instant culture, it's like, surprise.
Yeah.
Surprise. It's not. I remember being in chapel at DBU and they were like, y'all want Febreze, but you need Pine Sol. And that has stuck with me ever since. It's like, you got to do the deep cleaning, not just, this room smells. It's like, no, you need to actually do the deep cleaning if you're going to see the results.
I needed some bleach. I think I was a bleach guy.
Dude, I think we all need a little bit. Anyways, thank you for taking the time to be here. Where can people check you out and even like check out your products? Because I'm not just saying this to say this. They're not paying me to say this. I literally use the TruLabs products every single day of my life. Like literally sleep, hydration, my pre-workouts, Energy Plus. Like where can we check out you and your products?
Yeah, so pretty cool. You can go to TruLabs.com, which is our direct site, TRULABS.com. You can go to Amazon. And we're on Amazon, or you can go to Walmart. Any of your local Walmarts, next to the pharmacy, there's a sports nutrition section there. And you can find us on a shelf in 4,300 Walmarts across the United States.
Come on.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then soon to be in Meijer, Harris Teeter. Just basically we got a meeting hopefully with Kroger and Albertsons next month. So I'm like,
hope that goes well.
Hopefully we're everywhere, right? Because we just want to help more people.
Your products are
great. And then Instagram at Brandon Pouge, BRANDONPOGUE, and then at TruLabs. You can just check us out.
Check them out, y'all. Their products are great and the people are great. And hopefully this is proof of that because you're awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for tuning in, whether you're watching, whether you're listening. I'm so glad that you gave us your time. And I just pray that this encourages you. And hey, if you're not filled by this, get some TruLabs. Fill your cup. You know what I'm saying? But I love you guys, and I will see you next week for another episode here on the Bought and Beloved podcast. Bye.